Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the backstory. If you're new here, kindly hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below so that you can be notified whenever we post a new video. Now ladies and gentlemen, Tanzanian security officers have declared a curfew in the whole country. That curfew starts from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Reports reaching us is that Tanzanian Security Authority has declared a curfew in the whole country starting from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. This is after there were protests in the whole country. On the election day, these protesters were being told were protesting against what they call as a flawed electoral process.
Tuwe pamoja tumwangaliane. Hichi ni kituo cha Lake Oil, kiko Riverside na mdaundo kinalipuliwa. Yaani mdaundo kinawashwa moto. Watu ni wengi sana. Watu wako live.
Yaani tuko live kumamake. Alafu kuna msenge, wewe tunachoma kumamake babanda yenyewe.
Tunachoma kituo cha Ridhiwani hicho.
Hicho kituo cha Ridhiwani.
Kituo cha Ridhiwani tunaishi nacho hicho. Genzeri. Anajifanya ni askari, ana uchungu na familia yake aje. Askari anajifanya na uchungu aje. Askari ambaye hataki kuilinda familia yake aje. Tunaenda kuchoma kituo cha polisi kumala mama yake leo. Kituo kinachofuata, kituo cha polisi external. Kituo cha polisi external.
The demonstrations have been felt across the country, and at some point you are in the videos that we are showing, you're able to see that there is a police station which was attacked by some of these protesters. Some of these protesters also destroyed electoral materials, which means in some areas, all electoral posts, there were no voting that happened in those areas. And reports that we're also getting is that there has been low voter turnout, more so in major towns like Dar es Salaam, Arusha, Tarime, and Moshi. All these major towns experienced low voter turnout. And by the fact that the security organs feared that there was going to be an escalation of this protest, we are being told that their internet has been shut in the whole country. There is no access to internet. And at some point, police officers and military officers, anti-riot police officers and military officers were called in to help quell these protests in Dar es Salaam more so. Yeah, just as you've seen in that video, the military officers were called in, as just as I've told you. But now the question is, what is the effect of the military being called in to help in quelling some of these protests? Some of the experiences that we've had in Africa, where militaries are called in to help calm down the protests, results into unimaginable situations, because sometimes militaries do come on the streets and then they fail to go back. So in such a case, you might find that in Tanzania, such a thing can happen. And this is something that has never been experienced in Tanzania. It is the first time that Tanzanians have had to go to the streets during elections. And so many people are asking why. Is it that they don't love President Samia Suluhu Hassan? because since Tanzania gained her independence, they've never had such demonstrations against a sitting president. And some of the issues that are being raised by Tanzanians, one is the flawed process of election, which I've talked about in the previous video. And also there is the influence of neighboring countries like Kenya, whereby the Gen Zs have been very vocal and they've been asking questions, and this has led to some of the Gen Zs in these other countries trying to imitate what is happening in the neighboring regions. And then there has also been the attack on the opposition leaders, whereby they have been jailed. Someone like Tundu Lissu, who's a key figure in the opposition, has been jailed for quite some time, leading to these elections. So people are complaining and saying they have not been given an opportunity to air their views, to conduct their democratic right, which is to choose their members of parliament, to choose their president. It's like you being forced to vote in a specific candidate, which they feel like the government of the day and the ruling party, which is CCM, has been putting a lot of pressure on them. But pundits are also asking about the effect of this curfew, because voting was supposed to start at around 7 a.m. all the way to 4 p.m. Now, the question that many pundits are also asking is the effect of this curfew on the electoral process, that is the counting of votes. Because one, if the election was to be conducted from 7 a.m. all the way to 4 p.m., then it means ideally that from 4 p.m. all the way to maybe morning hours, there was going to be counting of votes. And the counting of votes, the process of counting of votes involves agents. It involves electoral officials. So what happens to these electoral officials? What happens to the agents of different opposition leaders who are participating in this election? Will they go home, or will they participate in the counting of votes? And then secondly, if there were people who are in the queue trying to vote, and then it gets to 5 p.m., what happens? Do they go home without casting their votes? And will they be disenfranchised at the end of it? Because if someone had woken up in the morning to go and vote, then they get to 5 p.m. and they have not cast their vote, what happens? The other issue is that Tanzania has close to 37 million registered voters. What if President Suluhu Hassan is only elected by less than 1 million votes? Will she get the legitimacy that is needed to govern that country? Because if from morning we are being told that there was low voter turnout, then it gets to evening and the curfew picks in. Some of the voters, just as I've said, who are queuing, will be forced to go home because a curfew will be implemented by the military. And I know militaries do not take chances when it comes to curfews. So most definitely all these people will go home and the counting will be affected as well. So if this is challenged in an international court of law or in a local court of law, then the election of whoever will be elected as the president can be disputed. And he or she will not have the legitimacy to govern this country. So the only thing that might happen is for them to call for another general election, whereby all these leaders will be elected officially, unless what the government of the day or the ruling party wanted was a coronation, whereby they are just going to select or choose leaders starting from the grassroots all the way to the presidency. Because as it stands, no counting will be done if the curfew is implemented. No counting will be done all over the country. And at the end of it, those who are favorable to the sitting president and the ruling party are going to be chosen to ride on that flawed electoral process so that they can govern the country. And this will still ideally raise some of the issues that these guys are still asking for. That are they going to have a legitimate government in place? And at what point are they going to be given that mandate to elect their leaders? Because all these leaders are not going to serve the interest of the electorate, but they're just going to serve the interest of whoever is going to appoint them into those positions. Tanzania has been enjoying some form of peace over the years since they gained independence. And no one has ever expected Tanzania to get to where it is right now. But that muzzling of the voices has been creating like a boiling kind of volcano that is almost getting to a boiling point or an eruption point. So however much all these voices might be muzzled now, but whatever happened today is an indicator of what should be expected maybe in the future if it's not well handled, because we are living in an era of information. Majority of Tanzanian youth are getting all this information online on their phones, on social media platforms. They also envy other countries that are developing within the region. The kind of freedom that they have, the freedom of expression, the freedom of communication, and all that, all the things that these neighboring countries are doing, and the manner in which they are developing. They are also gaining courage by looking at their neighbors who are able to confront the ruling class. CCM as a party needs to sit down and come up with ways in which they can address some of the issues. But even within CCM itself, I know there are people who are not comfortable with the way President Samia Suluhu Hassan is governing the country. And some of these people might also engineer a revolution within the country so that the president is painted in bold colors, and then when the time comes for them now to take over the leadership, or if anything happens, then they can engineer a takeover within the party so that they get new leaders and fresh leaders who can take this CCM party to the next level. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll keep monitoring what's going on, and we'll keep you guys posted whenever we have new information about what's happening in Tanzania. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it from us, but we'll keep monitoring what's going on. And if you love our content, kindly hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below so that you can be notified whenever I post a new video. Until next time, bye bye.